Edward's dry-aged meats is a true passion project for meat lover Edward Poe, who was driven to find steak and meat that had more flavor.
When I couldn't find what I was looking for, I decided to try to create it on my own. And the methodology just ended up being dry aging. We sell organically raised beef, pork, lamb, and goat, and our specialty is dry aging. We sell cuts that are ranging from 14 days all the way to 210 plus days in dry aging time.
He spent years experimenting with many cuts of beef, pork, and lamb before perfecting a process to give meat its absolute peak flavor and texture.
Dry aging essentially is taking a raw piece of meat and then creating an environment for it to basically tenderize and add flavor components to it, and hopefully it doesn't spoil in the process. Similar to like winemaking, you can get two winemakers, two different types of grapes from the same farms, they'll put their magic into it, and the end product is drastically different.
And Edward's aged mission goes beyond just a tasty steak, but adds on an element of education too.
This, the 100-day one, the marbling, the intramuscular fat is much more intense and much more marbled internally. Educating customers about meat, beef, and where it comes from, because all of our stuff is sourced locally, at least from California for the most part. We really care about the product itself, so we want to educate the customer in terms of like, okay, where's it coming from, how do you cook it, how do you treat it, and how do you serve it, and then also open people's eyes in terms of like, okay, for a steak, there's much more than just ribeye, New York, and filet. So we do a lot of different offcuts as well that are also dry aged, that are just not available in most butcher shops or grocery stores. You don't want to cut it too thin and you don't want to cut it too thick. So usually I like, you're talking about maybe like about 1/8 of an inch, because if it's too thin, you can't chew it. And if you can't chew it, you actually don't get the flavor release. Start with the control, kind of enjoy that, and then move on to this, the 100 days, and then move on to the Wagyu.
Plus, for those craving an experience, he'll carve up a flight of meats for curious minds to compare, contrast, and consume.
Each bite, you should smell it first. Smell it. It's just kind of like you're drinking wine. Smell it. Get a good sense of the smell, and then eat it. Chew it a few times, and then go from there. It's just like when you go to taste wine or beer, right? Unless you have different types of the same thing, in this case it's meat or beef, it's hard for people to really pick out the subtle differences in the flavor and the texture, right? So I do the tasting because you have the starting point, which is what most people will be able to buy at a grocery store or a butcher shop, right? The run-of-the-mill, really good steak, and then you pair it with the stuff that's been treated with our craft through the dry aging, right? Adding the flavors, the aroma, the subtle nuances to it. And that way, when you eat it side by side, you're really able to appreciate the actual dry aged steak versus the control, which is the unaged one. It can be totally customized, and we basically come to your house, we bring it to you, and we do all the cooking on site, present it, do a little explanation, do a little education as well, and everybody gets to have a fun time.
So this tasting and the methodology was a first for me, but his innovative ideas are getting to the meat of it all.
Customers they span all nationwide, so all the way from California, all the way to New York City, Miami. We ship nationwide, and everybody's enjoying the stuff all over the country, so it's very exciting. There's a lot more people that are interested in where the meat comes from versus not, I found. They're more involved with the process, and they're more interested in quality versus like quantity, I find. So, with the tasting or like a more flavorful meat, you really don't need as much. You just eat and you taste it for the flavor versus like you just trying to eat a whole steak to get full. So not all dry is created equal. So you have different steaks taste differently from different butchers or producers, because depending on the environment, it's going to have different flavor qualities to it. Am I a butcher? Am I a chef? I'm neither, because I'm trying to basically take all different avenues of food, right? I'm connecting with the producer, which is the farmer, and I'm trying to put the butcher hat on. I'm trying to put the chef hat on. So I'm taking all these different mind frames and I'm trying to put it into one single entity or one single product for people to enjoy.